Imagine waking up to find that every mirror in your house has been covered by a cloth, and there's a 2 pound slab of raw bacon sitting on your floor next to a bloody axe.
That sounds like a horror movie trope, but let me guess. This actually happened.
It did. On June 10th, 1912, in the tiny town of Villisca, Iowa, 8 people were found bludgeoned to death in their beds. It's one of the most brutal, unsolved mass murders in American history.
8 people in one night? How does someone pull that off without the whole town waking up?
That's the mystery we're diving into today, a story of ritualistic madness, a botched investigation, and a killer who might have been riding the rails from town to town. To understand why Villisca was so traumatized, you have to picture the town in 1912. It was a classic Midwestern community of 2,000 people. Nobody locked their doors. Violence was something that happened in big cities or on the lawless frontier, not in Iowa.
So, a safe haven, who were the victims?
The Moore family. Josiah was a successful businessman, and his wife Sarah was a pillar of the local church. They had 4 kids ranging from 5 to 11 years old. That Sunday night, they'd been at a church program, and their daughter Catherine invited 2 friends, the Stillinger sisters, to stay for a sleepover.
So, 10 people in the house?
8 survivors of the church service walked home that night. They were last seen at 10 p.m. By 7 a.m. the next morning, the house was eerily silent. A neighbor noticed the family hadn't started their chores, which was unheard of for the Moores.
Did the neighbor go inside?
No, she called Josiah's brother, Ross. He unlocked the door with his own key, walked into the guest room, saw 2 bodies covered in blood, and ran out screaming for the marshal.
Okay, walk me through the scene. If it's as ritualistic as you said, the killer didn't just strike and run.
Not at all. The killer used Josiah's own axe. Every single person, all 8 of them, had been bludgeoned with the blunt end of the tool while they slept. The force was so incredible that the axe left gouge marks in the ceilings on the upswing.
That's terrifying. And the mirrors?
Every mirror and glass surface in the house was covered with clothes or linens. The killer also took the bedsheets and covered the faces of all the victims after they were dead.
That feels personal. Like he couldn't stand them watching him. What about that bacon you mentioned?
A 2 pound slab of uncooked bacon was leaning against the wall in the guest room, right next to the axe. A bowl of bloody water sat in the kitchen where the killer seemingly washed his hands. He even took the house keys and locked the doors from the outside when he left.
Someone spent a lot of time in that house after the murders. Did the police find fingerprints?
This is where it falls apart. The local marshal lost control of the scene immediately. Hundreds of townspeople literally walked through the house to gawk at the bodies. They touched the walls, handled the bedding, and some even took pieces of the blood-stained wood as souvenirs.
You're kidding. They treated a mass murder scene like a tourist attraction?
Exactly. By the time the professionals arrived, the evidence was completely contaminated. It left them with a town full of suspects and no proof.
So who are the top contenders?
There are 3 main theories. First, there was Reverend George Kelly, a traveling preacher who was at the church that night. He had a history of mental issues and actually confessed to the murders years later, claiming a voice told him to slay utterly.
Case closed then?
Not quite. He recanted, and many believe his confession was coerced because he got the facts of the crime scene wrong. Then there was Senator Frank Jones, a local powerful man who hated Josiah Moore because of a business rivalry. People thought he hired a hitman.
A political hit on an entire family? That feels like a stretch for a small-town rivalry.
It likely was. The third theory is the most chilling. Modern researchers pointed to a man named William Mansfield. He was a suspected serial killer linked to nearly identical axe murders across the Midwest during those same years.
So a phantom of the rails? Someone who just stepped off a train, wiped out a house, and vanished?
That's the theory most experts lean toward today. A wandering maniac who followed the railroad lines. But Mansfield had an alibi. Payroll records showed he was in Illinois. Those records might have been faked, but it was enough to let him walk.
Why are we still talking about this over a century later?
Because it represents the end of American innocence in the heartland. It proved that you weren't safe just because you lived in a good town. It also remains a massive what if regarding forensic science. If they had secured that house, we'd know the killer's name.
And the house is still there, right?
It is. It's now the Villisca Axe Murder House. It's been restored to its 1912 condition, and people actually pay to stay the night there. It's become a landmark for true crime fans and paranormal investigators.
I think I'll pass on the sleepover.
Probably a wise choice. The case remains officially cold, and the Moore family never saw justice.
What's the one thing to remember about the Villisca axe murders?
It's the ultimate reminder that a botched investigation can turn a solvable crime into an eternal mystery.
That's Wikipedia. Every story on demand. Search your next topic at wikipedia.ai.